If there's a military conflict or even war between China and the United States, where it will occur most likely, the Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea, or China-Indian border?
That you must never, ever underestimate the United States of America. It's a truly formidable power. And even after China's GNP becomes number one, the US dollar will remain the global reserve currency. My name, Mahbubani, comes from an Arabic Persian word, Mahbub, which means beloved. And what are the prospects of India replacing UK as a permanent member of UN Security Council in the next 2 decades? The answer is 100%.
100%.
喺睇片之前，大家記得分享、讚好同訂閱卓見名家，最緊要撳埋呢個鐘仔，咁你就唔會錯過我哋嘅最新影片。
What are the lessons to learn from Asia? And here, the paradox about Asians is that, on the one hand, when it comes to managing societies, in one way or another, the Asian societies are showing greater competence, especially in terms of delivering economic growth. Let me give you another shocking statistic. You know, ASEAN, of course, got 700 million people, but the GNP of ASEAN is so much smaller than the GNP of the European Union, right? ASEAN is about 3.5 trillion, and the EU is about 16, 17 trillion, 5 times bigger. Guess what? In the decade 2010 to 2020, ASEAN, with 1/5 of the GNP of EU, delivered more global economic growth than the European Union did. So there's a high degree of competence in this region, but they don't speak about it. They don't make a big show of it. But at the end of the day, clearly within Asian societies, we are developing a kind of learning culture, a willingness to learn, a willingness to share, and a willingness to cooperate.
Well,
and all this is done very quietly, without any big show. So if you look around the world, I mean, seriously, go to Latin America, go to Africa, go to South Asia, go to Europe, go to Central Asia. You will not see this kind of growth. So something special is happening here. And we should be aware of it.
Kishore, for the sake of debate, I want to ask you, you actually know better than anyone else that Asia, even East or Southeast Asia, is diverse lot. Dr. Henry Kissinger, our mutual friend, is famously credited with the quote, "Who do I call if I want to call Europe?" So by the same token, I may ask, what number do I use if I want to call Asia? Now, the essence of this question is, do we overstate the case of Asia as unified entity? Now, early on you mentioned your cynicism of the so-called the Asia version of NATO. But China is deeply concerned about that threat. And also that even Indian and China relations is also a big question. Could you comment on that lack of unified entity, the other way to look at this issue?
Yeah, a very good question, and I'm happy to inform you that I answer it in this book. But a short answer. There is no question that there is a lot of diversity in Asia. I mean, frankly, Indian civilization is very different from Chinese civilization. And frankly, we might talk about this at some point. If there's one thing that worries me, it's about the relations between China and India. I think it's going to be quite difficult in the coming decade, and we should speak about that too. But when people say that there are no connections in Asia, they don't understand the past 2,000 years of history. And I point out the deeper connections by just using my personal example. Now, I was born as a Hindu Sindhi in Singapore, okay? Now, Hinduism, right, connects me with 1 billion people in India. And you know what? 9 out of the 10 Southeast Asian countries have an Indic base. Even Philippines, a Catholic country, when they hosted the East Asian Summit, the leader had to put on a show. They put on an Indian cultural show, Ramayana. Amazing, right? So that's Hindu, there's an Indic connection, India, Southeast Asia. Now I'm a Hindu. My name, Mahbubani, comes from an Arabic Persian word. Mahbub, which means beloved. And the script I learned to write as a child, as a Hindu, was not the Hindi script, but the Arabic script. Here and I, as a Hindu, have links with the Arabic world. The script I learned was Arabic. And then, as a child, my mother used to take me to Buddhist temples. She said Hinduism and Buddhism are very close. So when I travel in China, when I go to Korea, when I go to Japan, and I visit Buddhist temples, I feel a connection. So there are all these deeper layers of cultural connection among the Asian societies, which frankly were in many ways suppressed by 200 years of Western colonial rule. But all the disruptions of Western colonial rule will gradually disappear, and the old connections will appear. So there are longer historical connectivities within Asia that we should also be aware of, despite the fact that Asia is so diverse and so different in many ways too.
Now here are the 10 questions very quickly. Require only one word answer, or yes or no, or one sentence explanation. Number 1, who will likely win the 2024 election?
I can choose one only, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Are you worried that on November 5th, the United States may not have a new president because the defeated party will not concede? And this has actually already happened last time, right? But this time could be even much more prolonged and more difficult. Do you see this kind of scenario?
Yes. Actually, it's happened twice.
Yes,
it happened also
2000.
In the year 2000. And I can tell you one of our mutual friends, some of you may know him, Daniel Fang was staying in my house in New York. We went to bed at 11 p.m. We were convinced that Al Gore was the president. We woke up next morning and we discovered that there was no new president. We discovered after 2 months. So this has happened twice in the history of the
the
US.
first time the atmosphere is very, very different, right? Because there's not so kind of vicious bipartisan politics. American society is not divided, was not divided as now, right? Number 3, which war, Ukraine war or Gaza war, will likely end earlier? Is a ceasefire possible between Russia and Ukraine in the next couple of years?
First question, Gaza. Second question, in a few years, yes. In a few months, no.
Okay, good. No, I was surprised. Gaza crisis will be resolved earlier than Ukraine. If there's a military conflict or even war between China and the United States in the coming years, where it will occur most likely? The Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea, the Korean Peninsula, and old China-Indian border?
Taiwan Straits.
Interesting. I would say probably South China Sea. And if geopolitical tension between United States and China reach a point where Singapore must choose a side, which side do you think Singapore will most likely to choose? United States or China?
That's a very easy question.
Sure.
Neither side.
Next one. If China's GDP exceeds that of the United States, and also none of the US-led decoupling or relocation policies work well, say in next 10 years, do you think Washington policymakers will change their China policy?
No.
Still not.
I mean, you said one word, right?
You have one sentence to explain.
No, I think it's a given that the US-China contest will definitely accelerate.
Even China surpass the United States in terms of...
Yeah, I think don't forget that you must never, ever underestimate the United States of America. It's a truly formidable power. And even after China's GNP becomes number one, the US dollar will remain the global reserve currency for at least 2 or 3 decades after that.
One sentence.
And so I would say that the US, even after the Chinese GNP surpasses, the US will keep up its struggle.
You and I have talked a lot about US-China relation, talk about US, especially talk about US and China. And it might give the audience the wrong impression in terms of the notion of G2. So do you see today's world in a bipolar structure or multipolar structure or something else?
Multipolar.
Thank you. What's the percentage chance that India will replace UK as a permanent member of the UN Security Council in the next 2 decades? You served twice or once as the chairman or president of the UN Security Council. Yeah. So you wrote about that.
Well, I wrote a column in the Financial Times.
Yes, I know that. I know that. Give us
the answer to the question, what are the prospects of India replacing UK as a permanent member of UN Security Council in the next 2 decades? The answer is 100%.
100%. Oh, okay. In 20 years. Over a year ago, I had the honor, and actually less than a year ago, I had the honor and the privilege to have a fireside chat with your friend and the former Singapore Foreign Minister, George Yeo, here in this room. I asked him that in light of many crises and rampant corruption before Xi Jinping's administration, especially like the Bo Xilai, Zhou Yongkang crisis, did Xi Jinping save the Chinese Communist Party? This is the question I asked him. He said no. He said Xi Jinping saved China. Do you agree?
Well,
now, here's a question.
Since I can only say yes or no, I think I'll say yes. I would qualify it somewhat, but never mind.
You can qualify it somewhat if you want.
No, I think the story is, as you know, complicated. China has gone through serious internal challenges before Xi Jinping took over power. And actually, I document this in my book, Has China Won? Because 2 political monsters emerged in China. One was corruption, and the other was factionalism.
Yeah.
So Xi Jinping had to destroy 2 political monsters, and that's not easy, by the way. Okay. Killing such large political monsters takes an extraordinary amount of skill.
That's fair
So
enough.
anybody who succeeds in it, you got to give credit to them.
Well, number 10. With the ongoing debate over the negative impact of technology, especially AI, on jobs and societies, are you optimistic or pessimistic about this arguably unprecedented technological revolution? Optimistic or pessimistic?
Optimistic.
中意名家分析，記得俾 like 同埋分享，支持同訂閱卓見名家，最緊要撳埋呢個鐘仔，咁就唔會錯過我哋嘅新片。